Welcome to another episode of On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA. I'm CJ Hunter, the treasurer of the PBA.
I'm Tanner Brandemar, the sergeant at arms of the PBA.
And today we have Danny Colondona joining us. He's a Suffolk County Police Officer assigned to the Emergency Services Unit, and he's also the founder of the Guardians of Our Dependents Foundation. We always refer to it as the Good Foundation.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us, Danny.
Thanks for having me, both of you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so for everybody that's watching that doesn't know what the Good Foundation is, just tell us a little bit about it.
Good Foundation is an organization that I started back in 2009 that helps families of children of deceased police officers, no matter the cause of death. How I came upon this is like the really important part of this, and it's part of my journey and part of my story. Back in 1989, my father was a Suffolk County police officer. He was also in the emergency service unit, and he passed away of cancer when I was 14 years old. He was only 43 years old when he passed away. And I had a lot of people in my corner, went down some tough roads as most teenage boys would when, losing a father. Especially they say the most important person in a young person's life is the same-sex parent. And started going down the wrong road. And I had a lot of people that kept me on the right path. And a lot of them were police officers. I had a lot of police officers that were very influential in my life. And when I started this organization, it was in honor of my father to kind of keep his memory alive, but also try to give back and kind of prevent some kids to go down maybe the road that I started going down, and look out after them and give back to the community that actually gave so much to me.
Wow, that's really inspirational. You went through one of the toughest things a kid can go through, losing a parent, and you took your experience, and once you became a police officer, you decided to do something about it and try to help other kids that could end up in a similar situation.
So I always look at things in life as it's funny the way I look at it, and it's always about the road traveled, right? I mean, it's about the road that we go down. And I always look at it as if you could take something that's something like that's such a negative thing that could happen in your life, something along the lines of that, like a death of a parent, and then you could use that for good and take that negative and turn it into a positive. I don't think there's any better way, right, to honor someone's legacy by doing something like that. So that was the whole premise behind why I started, and it wasn't just me that started this organization. I had the idea behind it, but I had a lot of people with driving force as far as the PBA helping me, members of the department that helped me, and I had some strong family members that were behind it 100% that got us to that point.
That's great. It's so important to have such a strong support system whenever you're trying to do anything like this. Now, did you start to get the idea of this foundation before you even became a cop, or is this something that, once you were a cop, you decided this was something you wanted to do later?
So again, I go back to that journey. So I can remember this. I remember being at my dad's wake when I was a kid, and I remember being there, and I remember being outside, and my father specifically asked me not to go in and view him during his wake, so I didn't. I kind of stood outside, but I remember they had the police service like we do at most police funerals, and our former president, Jeff Frailer, he had taken my father's shield off, and I was sitting outside in the waiting room, and he handed me the shield. He's like, "Someday this could be yours if you do the right thing." And I feel like for me, that was like the beginning of my journey. That was like the beginning of the road. Although my road was rocky, right? That was always my idea. I had an uncle that was really influential in my life that kind of when I was going down that road, he was a member of the New York City bomb squad. He was actually injured in an explosion back in 1982 on New Year's Eve. And I grew up in his household. He actually brought me in, and he actually was a driving force in raising me. His name is Detective Anthony Senft. And what I got from him was priceless. He started an organization for injured cops called the New York City Police Self-Support Group. And I grew up in that environment. I grew up seeing that he took a tragic incident that happened with him, and then he gave back, and he took his injuries, he took his PTSD, he took the things that he went through, and he worked with other cops and saved other cops. And for me, that was like the most heroic thing ever. And I got to grow up in that environment. And then when it came time for me to use my, something that happened to me and turn that into good, that's exactly what I was able to do.
Yeah, that's really commendable. And one of the things we've been talking a lot about is the mental health on these podcast episodes. Yeah. And doing something like this, developing this sort of organization, I'm sure you feel like you're giving back. It's good for your own mental health too.
Of course it is. I mean, like I said, for me, when I see those kids when I see kids that lose a parent, like I was that kid. I know what that kid's dealing with. I know his feelings. I know his anger. I know his resentment. I know all the feelings that he's having. I know his stages of grief, and then I could relate to that kid, and then I could help him. And for me, it's actually, it's healing for me because I'm getting to do something, in a healing way to pass on what I went through, and I could help that kid heal, and I could help that kid's journey, and I'm able to help that child progress in life, and let them also know in the grand scheme of things, like your father or your mother is gone, but you're still part of our police family, and we're still going to take care of you.
I like how the kids don't become forgotten. I've seen a lot of what you do on social media, and you guys show what the kids are doing after the fact, and a lot of that, like when you're missing a parent in your life, that's a big deal, and they don't get to share those moments with their parents, but you post about whether the kid's birthday or they're going to college or whatnot, life milestone events in their lives, and you are able to put them out there and congratulate them, and that must feel really good for them.
It is, and we've become families, and when you see the families of the other deceased members of service, when you see the families get together and you see something like, hey, they went on vacation together or they went out to dinner together, it's great because that's what this is all about. We are a police family. It's obviously getting better, but there was a while in this country where we were out there by ourselves, cops. We weren't looked upon as we once were. And, there are probably families that were very private about their loved one that was a former police officer. And now I believe these families were able to get together and they're able to celebrate that. And they're able to celebrate under the umbrella of our blue umbrella of our police family. And, I know for me as a kid, I remember, and again, I always go back to Jeff Railer. He worked with my dad in emergency service. And I could tell you when I was in high school, I was wrestling and I would see those ES guys come to my wrestling match. That meant a world to me. That meant so much to me. So, I knew what that meant to me. So now it's my turn to let these kids know that, your mom or your dad may not be here, but you're always going to have your police family behind you.
And I think it's great too that, even though you started this organization, you've got a lot of cops that have your back now with this organization. You get a lot of help from other members. Why don't you talk a little bit about some of the support group you have around you that helps this organization going forward?
I have a great board. I know you guys know Lindsay's on the board. George Politis, Russ Yeomans. I could go on and on and on about the people. Jerry Sheridan, who retired, who actually helped me form this group. Frank Rendon. The amount of people, the PBA that have helped. We've been able to raise a lot of money. We've been able to do a lot of things that we normally wouldn't be able to do without that support. You guys know that everything, you guys are, you're in the union business. You know that everything that it takes manpower to get things done. It's not something that I could do on my own.
Oh, no doubt.
And if I don't have those people with the driving force behind me, it's not going to get done. We're not going to be able to accomplish and have the amount of money that we have. Now we're we're trying to give away money. And we have so many people love the cause. We have one woman that this year at a Christmas party, she's just an unbelievable woman. She'd kill me if I mentioned her name, so I won't because she makes me promise. She likes to be anonymous, but she's such a special woman. And I will tell you this, I go to pay for the Christmas party, and it was expensive. So, I'm not ashamed of $10,000 Christmas party. She writes a check for $10,000.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
And it's people like that make this organization. I'm an idea, but the rest of these people are really the driving force behind this.
Yeah, and it's great for police officers out there to hear stories like that too, because sometimes you get caught up in the media negative spins and you think everybody starts to feel this way about cops, but in reality, the vast majority of people, especially out here in Suffolk County, they do support us and they do want to help us in whatever endeavors we're doing to help other people.
I will say, and I think it has a lot to do with the union. I think a lot. I think the union does a really good job with our communities and community-based programs and helping out our community. We're not just like, hey, we're cops. We're here to, the only time you're going to see us is if we're writing you tickets or arresting you. Right. I think we do a good job of that out here in Suffolk County. I think we do better than most. But I can tell you when we were at an all-time low a few years ago and we were dealing with, the protests and all that other stuff that were going on that was, driven by some radical groups out there that, I'm not afraid to say that. I really believe that the people in Suffolk County come out and say, hey, we support you guys. You're walking in to pick up your lunch or whatever. Hey, we support you guys. We're behind you guys. Not everybody dislikes you. So I think
it was overwhelming.
It really was.
People that were still supporting us out here at least.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it really was. I remember I'm sure there's other jurisdictions where people were getting spit on and everything else, but people out here were pretty pretty positive. With pretty positive feedback, and again, it carries over to this organization where people they're so positive when they hear the story and they hear the story behind it. They want to help more and more.
Yes. So, and you brought up how we're engaged with the community and we get the positive messaging out there. That's one of my favorite things about this union. Before coming over to this job, I was a city cop for almost 9 years, and I was a PBA delegate out there. And the PBA there does whatever they can to do the best they can for their members, but the political atmosphere is a lot different.
Yeah.
Out here, the way we've always been engaged with our communities, it forces the local politicians to be engaged with us and keep that open line of communication, and in reality be supportive of us because they see that we're out there doing the right thing and trying to do anything we can from any different angle. It's not just always fighting crime, but it's also groups like yours that help people in the community.
Yeah, I do. And I think the big thing too is we live in the community that we police.
100%.
Right. And I think that says a lot. That comes a lot into the play. We're not, and it's no disparaging. I started out with the NYPD too, driving 30 miles, west of here. But we live in the community that we police. So we're going to hold our elected officials, I think, a little bit more accountable.
100%.
And we want to keep,
we're more invested in the community. Yeah.
Yeah. We want to keep our community safe. We want our kids to be able to walk to school and have safe schools and have safe venues to go out and play. Those are the things that I think that gets lost a lot in the conversation.
I agree 100%. And, when my time as a city cop, I enjoyed my time there. I took pride in doing the job. I tried to do right by the communities out there, but there is just that different aspect to it when it's where you live, it's where you grew up, it's where your kids are growing up. Right. It's a different aspect than when you're driving 30 miles each way to work.
It is. And I also think that job is so big. Again, I grew up with my
uncle. You get lost in the shuffle.
You're a number. 35. You're a small army. It's the 8th largest army in the world, the NYPD. So you have 30,000 cops where you could work for someone that has no idea who you are, where here, you're going to, your chiefs because you worked for them.
Right.
They know your family. They know your kids. And I think that's what always makes Suffolk County, the department outside of politicians and outside the community, the department's a family.
Right. And I agree with that also because when you're in the city, it's almost like everybody thinks of your rank as your first name.
Yeah.
When I came out here to Suffolk, my first day in the 7th precinct, I'm getting introduced around the building and I meet a guy named Jerry. I meet a guy named Joe and I find out later Jerry's actually the CEO of the building, right? And Joe's the captain of the precinct. All right. It wasn't captain, as his first name. It was Joe.
It's funny because I remember being a young Suffolk cop. I had just come out here. I was here for 9/11, obviously, but I remember right after 9/11, they took a bunch of us and they put us in MacArthur Airport to secure the airport. So I think I was there for a month. I went from the 3rd precinct, Brentwood, to working there at the airport. And I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm just walking around doing whatever. And I remember, if you guys remember, Chief Compatello before you, he just passed away, unfortunately. Due to 9/11.
He just went on to the memorial walls.
The guy was a legend. The guy was like the Suffolk County Police Department's version of George Patton. He was like a legend. And I remember my father had been gone probably 12 or 13 years, but at one point he was the CO of emergency service. And I remember walking through the airport. He looks at me and he goes, 2122. He's like, who's your father? I go, my father was, Danny Colondona. He's like, your father was fearless. That was the type of guy. And it's for me, that meant a lot to me, but it was also hey, this chief took the time out. He remembered who my father was. He took this time out and talked to me. On a job with 35,000 people, no one most likely is not going to know who somebody is because it's just so big.
We're very fortunate to have a lot of the fraternal organizations as well. So it gives us a lot of chances to go out and meet different people from different precincts that you would never ordinarily meet. I think that's also plays into it. That's why you have a connection throughout the department with a lot of people.
Yeah.
They know each other.
100%. I mean, your last fundraiser you guys had, there's people from any rank that can be there. And you're hanging out, you're becoming friendly with all these people.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's a good network. And listen, I always do I always go by the guys listen, you're still a chief, you're still a boss. I'm still going to address you that way. I have that military bearing from being in the military. But, at the end of the day, this job is a family. And that's, my organization that's the bedrock, the foundation of it. And, I hope to continue that. And I hope, long after I'm gone, that someone's going to carry that flag and that banner.
Yeah.
And I hope, and I don't foresee it changing, that this department always stays that way, because I always joke around, as corny as it sounds, like this department paid for me to be born.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
it's important to me. It's important to me.
And I think you hit the nail on the head too. Like having these personal relationships with these supervisors, it doesn't take away from our respect of their rank.
No,
we still understand the rank structure, that they call the shots if we're out on the road at some heavy call, but it makes it feel more like a team and a family atmosphere, being able to have those closer personal
You're working
relationships.
together and not.
Yeah.
You're not going against each other, and there's not a lot of egos up there at headquarters, right now. I think we're sitting pretty good up there. Like, there's not a lot of egos up there. We all have the same right frame of mind. Like we said, we police our communities. This is our backyards.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's the same mission.
Yeah. We all want the same thing.
100%.
Yep. You're raising your kids. You want the same thing for them that you wanted for yourself as a kid. And
Yep.
It's that cycle. We want to maintain this standard of living.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So what kind of events do you hold for the children of the fallen police officers? What sort of fundraisers do you do? What sort of activities do you take them out on?
So, that's a really good question, because it depends what some of the kids need. We try to do like some group stuff. Like we have a Yankee game coming up in June where we bought a suite that we have, 40 people coming to it.
That's really cool.
And, yeah, I mean, the Yankee Stadium suite is not cheap,
right?
But it's a once in a lifetime event. So, I mean, it's a way for us to get back. But we'll do events. We'll do fundraisers, like we did the cigar steak night. We'll do things like that. We've done like almost like a summer bash. We did a Halloween party one year, like with an 80s theme. We've done a lot of different things, but there's other families out there that go under the radar that don't want that. They don't want to come out to that type of venue, or they don't need that. They might need like a new roof on their house. Maybe the officer that passed away didn't have 20 years on. Mm-hmm. And he didn't, he got whatever he got as far as his pension wise, and didn't get his full pension, or his dependents didn't get the full pension. So everybody has different needs. Well, some might be more of an emotional support, and other families might have, a monetary support that they need, some type of financial help. So we do events based on what needs that we have. We have an event that we're going to have coming up soon, and I just want to kind of plug it. We don't really got a hard date on it yet. Chris Sorensi was a cop that I had worked with in the 3rd Precinct. And again, his name is always going to come up synonymous with as the driving force behind it as well, because I started this right after he passed away. I worked with Chris in the 3rd. Chris passed away of cancer in his early 40s, leaving behind 3 beautiful kids and a beautiful wife, Stacy. We kind of stepped in and helped out the family. Unfortunately, his son Jalen just was diagnosed with the same cancer at 26 years old.
Oh my God.
That's horrible.
That his father had.
This is the first I'm hearing of that.
Yeah,
that's horrible.
And Jay, unfortunately, the way it works is, we know that we're all covered under the benefits, the health benefits till we're 26. Well, Jay turns 26. He's living down south. I believe he was in Maryland, and he has a tumor removed from his colon the size of a softball. So his medical expenses are astronomical right now. We've donated money. There was a GoFundMe, but I mean, they raised some solid money, but it's not going to cover the amount of medical expenses we all know that's going to cost. So we're in the works with the family right now, trying to pick a date and a venue that works for everybody.
That's got to be even more difficult without having one of his parents, especially the father, who might have been the breadwinner of the family, to pay for medical expenses like that.
Yeah, I tell you, it was one of the toughest things to go to that house. Like, I went to that house to go talk to Stacy, and she looks at me and she's like, I'm going to have a different outcome this time. And what do you say to her at that point? You're looking at this poor woman. She buried her husband, right? Now her baby, her son, is dealing with the same, he has the same sentence, and she's like, they're not taking him from me. And she's a warrior. She's one of the finest women you'd ever meet. But that's a struggle,
no
especially
doubt.
when it's your child.
It's every parent's worst nightmare.
100%. 100%. That's something that none of us want to ever deal with, knock on wood.
Yeah. So, we usually wait till the end of an episode to give you an opportunity to plug where you can raise money and how people can donate to your cause. But since we're talking about this one right now, how about you tell everybody how they can get money over to support Stacy and her son?
So if you go on it, you go on the Good website. We had a link up there. I'm going to double check on the Good Instagram page. If I don't, we'll have somebody put it on there. We'll put a link to it. I don't know if the GoFundMe's still up.
Okay.
Last time I looked, they had raised about $80,000.
Oh wow.
So we want to raise a lot more.
Well, yeah, it sounds like a lot of money, but when it comes to these medical expenses, it's a fraction.
That's a drop in the bucket for medical expenses, and you're talking rounds of chemo, whether it's chemo or radiation. He's receiving that treatment now, but that's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
That's a drop in the bucket for his health care, and his being able to live and be able to buy food and put a roof over his head and all those things. I know he's staying with mom right now, but I'm sure at some point he's going to want to go off on his own. So, if we can get him a nice little nest egg where we can get him up on his feet and, get him to where he can be self-sufficient and healthy,
right.
That's going to be the idea for this. So, we'll put something up on we'll give you a link and you can put it on there.
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll do whatever we can to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, building that little nest egg for when he does get through this and does get back out on his own, sometimes having that peace of mind that the nest egg is sitting there helps with the recovery too, because it's one less thing to be a stressor throughout all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. I'm a 50-year-old man. I couldn't imagine what this kid's going through at that age, at 26 years old, to deal with that. He's just such a brave kid. I'll get text messages from him. I love you. Like, just a great kid. The family's great. His daughter Kaya, and then we have Aubrey. They're just great kids. Kaya is like my little thorn in my side. She likes to call. She'll FaceTime me from Mexico because I didn't want her in Mexico. I have 2 daughters of my own. She's my 3rd daughter, but she'll literally drive me nuts if she's listening. She'll know what I'm talking about. She'll send me pictures from Mexico when I didn't want her to go to Mexico.
Okay.
But, just an unbelievable family, and hopefully you guys come out to this fundraiser. We pick a date. You guys will actually get a chance to put your name to a face.
Yeah, we can post it on our social media as well to get more people out there. If you
that'd be
send
great.
us the flyer,
We'll definitely look up with a link on that.
Yeah, stuff like that. It's always best when multiple organizations are out there sharing it.
Yeah, as they should. Yeah.
It's a good cause.
Yeah, it's a great cause. A great family.
Yeah. So what about that you do a scholarship every year or two?
Yep, we do scholarships. Right now, we're able to raise so much money that we're giving our kids, anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000 a pop. Just giving
all the kids, or
how many of those
in college?
You do? So any kid in college?
Any kids in our groups at a college, and our kids are growing, but we've even helped kids that are going back for their masters. We have a couple of families where the kids are going back for the children are going back for their master's degrees, or they have student loans. We'll go through, we'll sit down as a board, like, all right, let's give her $2,500 to put towards her student loans. Mm-hmm. So we start chipping away at them. So, we try and spend as much money as we can, especially on the college side of that.
Right. And now some of these families, we're all Suffolk cops, and we've talked a lot about Suffolk families, but you haven't just helped Suffolk families. You've helped Nassau families, NYPD families. Is there any talk of creating like another good chapter in Nassau County or in New York City, like how the Brotherhood for the Fallen has chapters all over the place?
Yeah, so it's funny because New York City, again, we go back to it. It's like the 8th largest army in the world. They have so many different clubs, and when I started this organization, I really started talking to a lot of organizations in the city, and one of them was the Anchor Club. I don't know if you're familiar with the Anchor Club. They do a lot of great work. And I hooked up with them, and I got a lot of good ideas from them, from my uncle's support group, the police self-support group. A lot of them, they do have these organizations. So what we do right now is we're trying to, if you live in Suffolk County, we will help you. Even if you don't, we have a Port Authority family that lives in Staten Island, and we help them out. Mm-hmm. So, we have all different agencies. Whoever comes from help, we're not going to turn you away. Which
goes along with that blue family too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're here for each other.
Yeah. I don't, like I've seen, we've donated money throughout the country where there's other families, and we've even done military. We've even helped military families.
Do they normally reach out to you, or do you normally reach out to them, or how is that?
Sometimes we do. We get referred. Somebody will refer us. Like that's what happens with Port Authority, because Lindsay has a strong connection on our board to the Port Authority. Right. We have a couple other people on the board that have a strong connections with the NYPD or other stuff. So we kind of we kind of like will go off like based upon people reaching out to them, and then they'll give it to us word of mouth. But for the most part, we usually give the families after someone passes, we'll give them a little bit of leeway. We don't want to be that annoying group that's there right away, and everybody wants to help, and it's not coming from a bad place. But the last thing they want to see is us handing them a business card. Hey, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
Right.
It's way overwhelming. So we wait till everything's they're moving on their life. They're starting to get back into their day-to-day routines, going back to work. And then we'll reach out to an advocate in the precinct. We like to have one person for every precinct. We'll reach out to that advocate and say, hey, listen, can you set up a meeting? And then we'll go over there and kind of tell them about the support group. Or we'll invite them to an event that we're having. Hey, come out, and they'll wind up hanging out with another family member. It could be a widow or a widower, and they create that bond.
Right.
It's really cool to see. And then that's how we get our in.
Yeah, and that's a unique bond too, because not everybody goes through that. So you feel comfortable around somebody who is going through the same thing.
Especially for the kids too.
Yeah.
Missing a parent, I'm sure that you've probably seen many friendships grown from the young kids because they've gone through the same thing at a tough time in their lives.
Yeah, when you see it, like you get to see, like we do the fishing trip every year where we go out and fishing. We take them out either on the North Shore or the South Shore. We change it up to make it a little different every year, but we do a great fishing trip every year, and the Christmas party, and you really see how the kids come together and they're playing together. And we also, a lot of times because where I work in ES, we'll align it with our Christmas party so that the kids they're surrounded by that police family. We'll bring the bear cat out, the bear, and have Santa come, and it turns out to be a really really nice
that's
thing.
great. It's got to be awesome for the kids to see that many cops there.
Yeah,
and they feel like it's for them.
Yes,
right. It makes them feel special, and they're part of that big family.
Of course.
Yep.
Of course.
So you not only are you a softie in a way, how you take care of all these people, but you're one of the tough ESU guys too. So tell us a little bit about what you do in ESU.
So ES is kind of like, I always say, when people ask me about ES, I always say I'm playing center field for the New York Yankees. Obviously, my dad worked there. Mm-hmm. So, being that, my dad was my hero growing up and my idol, like I got to do what he did. I get to go to work in the same building he did. I wear my dad's shield. When I go to work, I have his locker at work. So for me, to be honest with you, it's a dream come true. The guys I work with, like you say, tough, they're as tough as they come. I always say when these guys walk, the earth shakes. These are some legit dudes. It's a very unique unit. Being able to be in this unit and you train throughout the country and you see other departments, what we do in emergency service unit as far as being a SWAT team, rescue unit, hazmat, and doing the bomb squad as well. It's a pretty unique unit. There's a lot of departments throughout that have that tactical aspect that they only do tactics, or they're a joint team, and it could be from like 4 different departments, like a regional team where we're a full-time team. But if we come upon a device or some type of bomb, we could deal with that as well. So we're a pretty unique unit throughout the country.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You get a lot of really good training, and it's something that, like you said, you become like a jack of all trades kind of thing. You could kind of be thrown into any situation, and you're the kind of guy that all the other cops feel more comfortable having there with them in when shit hits the fan.
It is, and I always throw it back to I always say this, and my ES brothers, all the ones that I know and that I'm tight with agree with me. Patrol is the most dangerous thing you can do, right? You never know what you're going into in patrol. You could be going into a domestic, and you could be going to an aided case, and it just turns out bad. You don't know what you get. For the most part, as far as what we do at ES, we know what we're getting involved in. A lot of times, you got some highly motivated, fit dudes that are all, got assault rifles, and we're going in the door. We're
guys like GI Joes.
We know what we're doing. We know what we got. We're pretty good at what we do. I always say patrol is the backbone of this job, of any job, and that's the most dangerous aspect. But like I said, it's a great career. It's a great job, and our motto is basically, we could do it. We'll get it done.
Right. It's like to have the patrol guys can lean on you guys as well. Speaking from working patrol.
And I don't think it could be understated either. Like you mentioned, patrol's going into a call. You don't always know exactly what you're dealing with till you get there. But you're the guys knocking down and breaking through doors. You don't know what's on the other side of that door either.
No, we definitely don't. And there are times where it could definitely get a little hairy. But the amount of volume that we actually do in Suffolk County, there's a lot of teams that are not doing the amount of volume that we do as far as if you're talking about executing search warrants.
Right.
So you're accustomed to that and you're able to operate under that stress. And that's kind of what we look for. In the last couple of years, we've had some really good bosses over there. It started with Daryl Simmons that came back to be the CO. There was a time, a little bit of a lull in there before that, but Daryl came in there, and then Tommy Zagajeski came in there, and now Mike Shea, and they've really took the reins of this place. And they've done a good job of morale. And for me, I've been there 18 years now. This is the best I've seen it as far as like the personnel that are there. I mean, there's some pipe hitters there now.
Yeah, and Mike Shea is a great guy. He was one of the supervisors in the 7th precinct when I was still there, and he's the kind of guy that the men around him just trusted him. They knew he would have their backs as long as they were out there trying to do the right thing. He's a real leader. And it's great to have a guy like that in emergency services.
And the big thing too is like. What the police department really doesn't do, this is where I think we fail, right? Like coming from the military does a really good job at teaching leadership, right? When you got promoted to a sergeant, they tell you, I'm dating myself now, back then it was PLDC, and they would send you to ANOC and BNOC and all these different, as you progressed up the NCO ranks, right? Now, in the police department, you go to like a couple of weeks, supervisor school, and you really don't get the grasp of leadership. But when you got you have Lieutenant Shea. Lieutenant Shea is a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. So that guy's been through leadership schools. Daryl Simmons was a great leader. Zagajeski used to sit in his office and read books about leadership. So I think that's a very important thing, is knowing leadership. And for me, when you see bosses take accountability and you see supervisors take accountability, you can't put a price on that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And attitude reflects leadership too. When you have a leader out there that you trust, you're going to have a group of guys out there doing the work and taking more pride in it, or wanting to produce for that leader.
Of course.
Yeah. I imagine a group like that, especially with alphas, that you guys going into some of the most dangerous situations as well. Having a strong leader is extremely important.
When you know that you have your back in this, there's certain aspects of this job you don't have to worry about because you have a good boss on it that has your best interest at heart. That makes you doing your job. It makes you doing your job that much easier. And like I said, that's a job that you have to be. I'm going to tell you have to be self-motivated to come there if you want to be successful in that unit. Because the guys in that unit, like you said, they're a bunch of alpha dogs over there. Right. There's some gorillas over there, and they're going to hold you accountable and make sure you don't know your job, that you're going to get called out on the carpet. That if you just want to come over there and wear the uniform and walk around and say, I'm an ES cop, that's not going to be the place for you to be, because you're going to get called to the carpet. I
couldn't imagine being like the weak link over there. I'm sure he's not treated with the.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can kind of get not. You kind of can tell who when that happens, and if they do, it usually doesn't. They usually don't last long over there. They realize like the workload and what it entails. And listen, you have to respect someone that comes there and says, "Hey, listen, like we do X, Y, and Z. Like I didn't realize like there was this much training. Like I didn't realize like I'm going to be gone from home this much. I didn't realize I'm going to be traveling throughout the country this much. This is not what I thought it was." And then they're like, like, "Hey, listen, I'm good. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm going to go back to the precinct, or I'm going to go to crime control, whatever it is." And you have to respect that.
100%.
Absolutely. I don't hold anybody. I don't hold a grudge on anybody.
Yeah, sometimes people need to recognize what they're willing to put into something to be able to do it the correct way. Like,
100%.
We're good friends with Bob Galini. Bob Galini was a board member with us. He recently stepped down. Now we got Glenn came on. But Bob was gone all the time training and doing his bomb tech schools. Yeah. And he used to miss a lot more time at home and missing out on times with his wife and kids. He's very hard.
He's very hard. So we all know Bob. Like, we can goof on him, and I'll take hell in the locker room for this, right? But he is by far probably the best ES cop I've ever worked with.
Oh, wow.
And there's not a guy in the unit, you can say whoever's kissing his butt. I will tell you this. I've worked with a lot of ES cops, been there 18 years. You're not going to find a better, you're probably not going to find a better bomb tech in the United States. He's a legit bomb tech. And as far
Bob's
as ES,
told me that.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
A number of times.
But he's a mentor to me. Like when he retires, I've been mentoring with him for the last year and a half, working with him. He's getting me spun up to take over the training job when he goes. So I'm the training guy with him, and the amount that I've learned just from him, it's crazy. But I will tell you, like, he's one of the guys that holds guys accountable for what they do. He knows his job inside and out. He's going to make sure that you know your job as well. And that's something to be said for that. And when he does retire, that's going to be a huge loss.
He's already been, and Glenn's doing a great job stepping in, but he's been a huge loss for the PBA already. Yeah. He, just like he knows his job and holds people accountable at ES. Yeah. He held people accountable.
Well, you guys know he's like OCD, right?
Oh, he's always squared away, even the way he walks.
Yeah. So it's funny with him. So great story. I've known him since I was in 6th grade. So he was my camp counselor when I went to wrestling camp, Sachem wrestling camp. It has to be like 85, 86, right? He's like a Johnny Lawrence looking guy back in the day. Like he had this beautiful, like,
was he always bald?
No, beautiful head of hair. Really? Hair. Oh, beautiful, right? He was like your typical high school jock in every 1980s movie, right? So I remember he was actually my camp counselor. So I'm probably like 6th grade. So we're going back to like 1985, 86.
Yeah, because right? Bob's old.
He's old. He's old, right? We established the fact that Bob is old and he's much older than me. So Bob, we're like, the coaches tell us, hey, you could pick whatever college you guys want to be to represent. So back in the 80s, like Iowa wrestling was where it was at. Mm-hmm. Like everybody wanted to wrestle at Iowa. Everybody wanted to wrestle. We were all wearing Dan Gable wrestling shoes. That's where it was at, right? So we're going Oklahoma, Iowa, this, that. He's like, no, you guys are going to be Suffolk Community College. Right? And I'm not demeaning Suffolk Community College, but it's not Iowa wrestling. Right, it's not Oklahoma, right? So we're like, so he made us go into this tournament, being Suffolk Community College, going against Iowa and these other teams. We wind up winning the whole Sachem tournament. We wind up winning the whole thing as Suffolk Community College. So when I get on a job, I'm working in Brentwood one day, and we call for ES because we have a goat. Typical Brentwood thing. We have a goat running around Brentwood, right? So we're like, call ES. They'll come down and talk the thing. And I see this guy, and I'm like, where the heck do I know this guy from? I'm like, I know this guy, and he's like just making his typical Bob, like, wise remarks or whatever it is. And I'm like, yo, that's the guy from Sachem Wrestling Camp. I'm like, holy cow. And then then I wound up working with him, a few years later. So, but he is the best.
We're all definitely going to get roasted in a little while. I can just hear it from Bob right now.
As
soon as he hears this, you're going to start.
I cannot wait. He's probably home right now drinking an old fashioned. He's an old fashioned kick right now.
Yeah. So. Is he drinking old fashions now?
Yeah, he's drinking old fashions. I'll get pictures from, he was in Arizona, so I'll get pictures of old fashions, and he's smoking them. So that's like his new OCD right now. So I'll let it ride.
When he was here, it was always like an IPA or a beer.
Yeah. No, he's on an old fashioned kick right now.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Like, him, like if he's into something, he's all in. It's not like, there's a couple guys like Cummings is like that too. There's a couple guys like that. They don't do anything. There's no half-ass. They're either in or they're out.
If you're gonna do something, you do it right.
Yeah, you do it right. Bob doesn't do. Yeah, everything is he's all in.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So it's fun. So you talk about Bob having this golden blonde hair.
Beautiful man of hair.
When you see him in ES for the first time, did he have the hair, or was he follically challenged as he is now?
No, it was going. It was going. He actually, in typical Bob fashion. So a guy in a third, like, he finally shaves it, and we see him because I was in squad 2 in a third, and he was in team 2. So he was always driving around a third precinct in a truck. So you'd see him. He'd come to your calls or whatever. And I remember he came to a call, and he finally came to grips with it, and he shaved his head. And he told the guy, like, somebody's like, "Hey, Bob, you finally shaved your head?" He's like, "Yeah, I got radiation." And the guy felt like horrible. Typical Bob, like he just let it go.
Of course.
That's just him. Man. He's the best.
And that's why we all feel comfortable talking about him this way, because he sees the humor in it.
He does. He does.
So I'm here drinking a coffee. The Good Foundation actually you make your own coffee, or you sell your own coffee?
Yeah, so we do. I had an idea. You see so many of these coffee companies, and it was really blowing up, like Black Rifle Coffee. There's so many different coffees out there. The guy, Pat Mack, who's a former Delta guy, he has his own coffee brand. There's all these different things, and they're really taking off in the veteran community. And I was like, you know what? That's an idea. So I came up with an idea to do a bag of coffee and honor a cop. So we have a coffee company upstate. We're actually switching companies, so I don't want to mention their name right now, but we found a coffee company up there that was willing to to bag and sell our coffee. We went up there, we tasted the coffee. It was excellent at the time. And we would come up with different like witty names for the family. Like we had the families come up with witty names for the bags of coffee, and it kind of really took off. So it became a big thing. And then it just like we started doing it for the military as well. We came up with a couple of Devil Doc in Austin Joe. They had some really good stuff. Morning Joe for Austin. Austin was my son. My son was in Afghanistan in 2019. He was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division. And they had like crazy amount of suicides when they came back. I think 9 people from his regiment committed suicide.
That's horrible.
It's awful. And then one of his team leaders unfortunately took his own life. And then we did a bag of coffee for him, and that was a Morning Joe. And then what we were doing is we were donating it to a Stop Soldiers Suicide company that was going out there that were raising money. We were giving that, and we were raising the money and giving it to them. Because at the time we have a good substantial amount of money in there, but we want to pass it on. We want to pass it forward to other charities. Of course.
Do all the different bags of coffee? Do the profits go to the same? Where do the profits go usually?
It's a great question. So some of them we've given it back to a specific family. Other ones we've given it to Stop Soldier Suicide. Mm-hmm. That's a great charity, and I think we raise like $3,500 per bag that we sell, and then what we do is we give that to Stop Soldier Suicide, and they're a great cause, and that's able to help numerous veterans that are battling PTSD. And it keeps us. It keeps us in line with our military brethren. Right. Police department. I feel like being in the military, being a cop, like we're all.
It goes hand in hand.
It really does.
Yeah,
really
a lot of cops have that military background.
Right. And I feel like they're taking care of the away game. We're taking care of the home game.
That's a great way to put it.
And I feel like us supporting them for what they do. You can't put a price on what they do. So I feel like being able to do that and helping that family out, helping those families out, and giving them the proceeds, it's good for us. It's really,
it's incredibly nine suicides from
9 suicides in that regiment when they came back. I remember my son came home one day. What the problem was, and again, this goes back to taking ownership and leadership, right? Leadership, taking accountability. They came home, and it was funny. Not funny, it's actually sad. When they came home, it was during the height of COVID. So my ex-wife, my son's mother, I had called her. I'm like, hey, there's a family readiness group. I'm like, we're going down to Fort Bragg or whatever. And she's like, I haven't heard from him. And I'm like, I haven't heard from him. So like an hour before I'm leaving to go to Fort Bragg, where you're going to go home to the welcome home ceremony, I get a phone call from the Army, and they're like, oh, they're going to be quarantined. You can't come down and see them.
Oh,
that's crazy.
My son was in Afghanistan for 9 months. The 82nd's a famed division. They were assigned with 1st Special Forces Group, pulling perimeter for them while they were going after high value targets. So these kids saw a lot at 19 years old,
right.
And you're dealing also with a generation that was raised a little bit differently than us, so they're out there doing these things that they're not accustomed to. And then they came home. What are they going to do? You lock them in the barracks?
Yeah, it's they're finally back home. They're looking forward to seeing mom and dad.
Yep.
And now they're quarantined.
Yeah, so it was definitely an eye-opening experience. And then you're worried, and you're thinking about these kids, and some of them will fall into alcohol, and some of them will get rolling into depression. There was no outlet for them, because and there was no plan. No one had the foresight to say, hey, listen, we're redeploying these kids home during COVID. What's the plan for them? What are we doing with them? Who's taking leadership in them? Are we going to quarantine them? Are we going to let them feed it? There was nothing. There was like a fly-by-night thing. And then that's what you happen. And again, someone has to take accountability for that.
Yeah, and I know mental health and PTSD issues, that's been a huge hot topic with us in the PBA. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, the military's dealing with that as well. The PTSD is more widely, the PTSD is more widely recognized now, and everybody's looking for different ways to help anybody who's suffering from it. Have you noticed anything in the military that they're doing differently today as opposed to say when you got out?
So I was in peacetime military, right? So like it was way different back then. Like, my deployments were to, peacetime Thailand. I wasn't in Afghanistan and Iraq. I got out right before that. I was on the police department when all that stuff kicked off. So you didn't really deal with that. You dealt with more of when I was in like, hey, the drinking thing. Like,
Okay.
Listen, we were kids in the barracks, like, without home, you're home away from your parents for the first time. You're away from home for the first time. And, that was the big issue back then, was like guys drinking in the barracks, guys catching DWs and stuff like that. That was the mental health that I think you really saw.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's different. You saw guys that were going to Afghanistan, Iraq, and their deployments were so long. Some of these guys were deploying for a year and a half, where these units weren't set up to do deployments for a year and a half, and that's the way it is. Listen, you go back to the World War II generation where those guys deployed for 3 years.
Right.
And then they came home and PTSD wasn't a thing for them. So what did they do? They all went, a lot of those guys drank, and that's how they dealt with their problems, and they just held it in and dealt with their nightmares. I think society it's more accepting today. And I think we, as a society, we do a better job at it. But again, I think as far as what they deal with today, as far as the wars that were fought recently, I think that they definitely need to do a better job at identifying certain things that are going on with individual soldiers, Marines, airmen, sailors, whatever it may be.
I think it's interesting how you describe how being in the service at different times kind of results in different sort of, mental obstacles that you're dealing with. And I haven't really thought about it till now, but I wonder if being a police officer in different times has led to what we're dealing with now with our mental health crisis and the way the media kind of nitpicks every little thing that a cop does on TV. You have, when something's going on out in the public, very, very often you don't have people coming to help you. You have people just pulling out their cell phones, hoping to catch the next viral video. And I think the way we're under such a microscope now has compounded and created the mental health crisis we're having, where there was always issues, but I think it's a little more prevalent now.
Also with the politicians and the media, and when you have politicians that aren't going to support and back up the police officers, they'll nitpick at everything, and those are the leaders. So when they start doing that, and you see that on TV, a lot of the public, I think, gets caught up in that.
I think people lose sight of the human aspect of things.
100%. Yeah.
I think they don't realize, like, when you're judging that police officer, and let's say I'm like a news reporter or I'm an editor, and I take something that happened on a car stop and I edit it to make it look very, very bad. I don't think that people are showing the human side of things and saying, listen, when you do that, you might get more ratings and you might get that promotion you want, but you're destroying your life. Mm-hmm. You're destroying somebody. You're destroying a family. You're adding stress to this individual police officer that's going to trickle down to his children, that are going to trickle down to that child's school. And I think we lose sight of that as a society. And I think that all stems from upbringing. Mm-hmm. And I think on the other side of that coin, as far as like what we do as cops, I think today you're dealing with a different element. The people that, and I'm trying to say this without sounding like I'm judging anybody that's younger than me, but we're dealing with a generation that was always giving a trophy, that was always saying, hey, you're going to get a trophy for being in last place. Right. And they don't understand loss. And I think when we do that, and we have a society that doesn't understand that it's okay to have a winner and it's okay to have a loser, as long as you learn from that loss. I think we take away from that.
I agree.
And we're building different people. And I think that policing is a reflection of society. And I think that's what you're seeing.
I think the phones are a big problem too. I think everybody's
100%.
constantly on their phones. Like I've seen several videos, and this has happened to me before in Huntington Village, where you get into like a roll around, you have a situation with somebody, and then instead of maybe trying to help, or at least like maybe even just moving out of the way, you have a lot of the younger kids on their phones videotaping whatever is going on because they want to get the next big thing, the next big video that goes viral on Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head too when you say they took away the human aspect of us, because it became so common to hear people say ACAB, right? All cops are bastards, or just referring to us as pigs all the time. Yeah. And that you saw that on CNN and MSNBC and some of these mainstream media sources more than you saw them referring to us as police officers or showing heroic actions that we take. I saw ACAB all over the TV all the time for it seemed like a year or two.
Well, I mean, you know the old story behind it. Everybody's willing to say that, and then someone's breaking into their house and they hear somebody coming through a window at night. What are they doing? They're calling 911. Right. And I think, like, again, I think in our country we do a poor job at raising our kids today. I think we've removed God from everything. Right. It's when I grew up. Right. I'm older than you guys, but stores were closed on Sundays. You went to church with your family, and I think that one of the things that when things started going wrong was we start demonizing God, and we start taking God out of school. We start taking God out of everybody's lives. And now there's no fear of anything. There's no fear of anybody's watching you. There's no fear of any repercussions for your behavior. So yeah, I'll go spit on that cop. I'll go yell out ACAB or whatever it is. You know, there's no ramifications for bad behavior anymore.
Right. And I think so I listen to Sid and Friends in the morning on my way into work every day. And just this morning, they were talking about how the positive contributors in society, and generally speaking, the happier people with their lives, that they have a stronger sense of faith in something, whether it be, a Christian God, whether it be Allah, whether it be, whatever religion you are. If you have some sort of faith in something, you generally grow up happier. You generally grow up to be more of a positive contributor to society, rather than, somebody who's atheistic and doesn't really believe in anything, and there's nothing after this. It's like, what do you have to look forward to? This is just it. This is the end.
I love the name of your coffee company because it's Faith and Guts. And I think that that's something that we've really grown away from in society nowadays is faith, having faith in a God and a bigger purpose in ourselves. And I think that prayer, especially you're helping young kids that are go through traumatic life events with their parents passing away, and even the son of the one person that has cancer now as well. I think prayer is such a beautiful thing. If we could all just sit down and pray sometimes, it really does wonders for mental health as well.
I think prayer is the key to everything in life. I mean, listen, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm a devout Christian. I grew up very Catholic, a very strong Catholic household. My father was a Eucharistic minister in church. My mom sung in the church choir. My parents both made a pilgrimage to Medjugorje or Yugoslavia, where there was these children that would see apparitions of the Virgin Mary, and my parents would go there as a place of healing. So I grew up very, very Catholic. I myself am more of I believe more in a personal relationship with Christ, and I read my Bible and I pray. But I believe that these things have been attacked upon, and I believe like we've taken them out. So I mean, the basis of Christianity and most religions is love. And when we don't love our fellow man and we demonize everybody, and we're looking to label everybody and make everybody look bad, I think that's a huge problem. Yeah, that's a huge problem. We're seeing it today in society.
100%. And I think a lot of people, they look for proof of something to believe in rather than just having faith, because they'll say, oh, well, it's never been proven that there's a God or an almighty power out there. But it's never been proven that there isn't either. Yeah. And I feel like they lose sight of that.
Yeah. What did Jesus say? Blessed are those who have not seen me.
Right.
Right. And still believe. I mean, that's
what faith is all about. Not seeing and still believing in it.
That's the basis of Christianity. And, I've had my own personal, circumstances, certain situations that happened to me that I know is faith based, and I know that's why my faith is unbreakable. I believe in Jesus, and I will never waver from that, from Jesus Christ, and I know I am where I am today because of Christ. I mean, my story itself of where I was and where I am today is all based upon love of God. I mean, he's a merciful God that forgives. I mean, listen, we're all sinners. We all commit sin, and I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a firm believer of the love of God. And, I always I always say it this way, like people ask me about Christianity, and people ask me about, well, how does God love this one? How could God love this guy who killed this person? I'm like, well, listen, if your child went into a bank today and went to rob a bank and shot the bank teller and killed the bank teller, you'd be so disappointed in your child's actions, right? But would you stop loving your child?
Right. You can't. You can't, because you're still going to think of all those years prior to them making that turn.
That horrible decision. Listen, I would be disappointed. I would not talk to my child for a while. I would probably have to, take a step back. But your love it's always
down,
going to be
that's still
there.
your
Deep
baby.
down, it's still your child.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the basis of Christianity. And I try to look at things in an objective point, and I try to carry that over into the things like the good foundation and being a police officer.
Yeah. Well, you're a guy who walks the talk. You talk about, all this faith that you have and the type of man you've grown into based on your life experiences. And,
I make plenty of mistakes.
well, we all do. We all do.
Absolutely.
But you've taken your life experiences and turned it into positive, right? You're trying to help not just yourself, but everybody around you and all these other people that fall into these situations that you were once in.
Yeah.
And I think that's very commendable. And
I appreciate it.
I'm proud to have you on the show. I'm happy to call you my friend.
Thank you.
And,
Me too.
Is there anything else you want to just get out there to everybody before we wrap up today?
No, again, thank you for having me on here. I mean, this platform is great. It's a great way to get the organization out there. Like I said, I'll give you guys the link. You guys can post a link on the website for Jalen.
Absolutely.
And I just look forward to working with you guys and making things happen. You guys have really been like a driving force for this. I mean, there's so much you guys have done behind the scenes, and between whether it was you guys, it was Noel, it was Jeff, you guys have always been a driving force behind this, and I appreciate what you guys do.
All right.
Last thing, Danny, where can, I know we plugged you early before, but again, as we're finishing up right now, you want to just tell people where they can reach you on your website, where they can order the coffee from too as well?
Goodfoundation.org. The coffee fund is Faith and Guts Coffee. Right now, we are on a back order for coffee, so we're actually in the process of ordering more. We switched coffee companies. We're going to go with a local company now, so we'll have that up and running in a couple of days. And then you can just look us up on Instagram and Facebook.
All right, awesome.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks a lot, Danny.
Awesome, guys.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.